So let's look back 3 years. What are kind of the key things you've seen change in the last 3 years? And then let's look forward 3 years, 3 to 5 years. And what are you building your video strategy around?
Well, thanks for having me, first of all. I would say if I look back over the last 3 years, a lot of what the previous panelists were talking about is what is really keeping us awake at night. So consumption has really changed, and yet content is healthier than it's ever been. So that war on attention is really what we're focused on. It is not as easy to break through with a message that we believe is relevant as it used to be. So as live versus on-demand viewing is continuing to fluctuate, advertising versus non-advertising supported platforms, and then great content, but people are not as, I would say, reliant upon a network as they are upon a program, and where can I grab that across any individual platform. It makes it more challenging for us to go and communicate. And as a mass retailer, that's really important to us, obviously, is because we need to be able to deliver messages at scale. So we have been thinking very hard about how can we create a different kind of video ecosystem moving forward into the future. And so one that is mutually beneficial to networks, to content creators, to our business, and ultimately, and most importantly, for our guests and their experience as well. So earlier this year, we're starting down that path to move towards the future. So with some key partners, we got together and started talking about things that were really important to us to be able to build on that. And it falls into 3 key buckets, which I think the future will continue to enable even more. So the first is data. There is just so much data out there that we believe can help to inform our overall investment and planning strategies, but also the content that is most relevant and important for our guests. Within content, we really want to understand and identify which programming is our guests have the most affinity for. And part of the reason for that is to deliver a message, but the other part is that we can understand the context of the environment in which the message will be received so that we can show up in an appropriate way and add value to that experience. And then
so context matters.
Context still matters, yes, absolutely. And then with measurement, it's actually being able to test and optimize and learn as we go. So gone are the days, I think, where you go into a campaign and you have a couple of pieces of creative, and if it doesn't work, well, we'll wait till next season. You have to be able to be nimble and agile, and so measurement is a key component to that. Because as we spoke about earlier too, we know that linear still plays a gigantic role in reaching guests and in terms of overall consumption of video content. But if we can get a better understanding of overall video consumption, we believe that we can win in a way that will be beneficial for everybody involved.
So you mentioned creative. Have you increased the number of creative spots that you have? And I know that you're doing Addressable too. So
yeah.
Have you? I know that's usually it takes a little longer for the creative to catch up to the media innovation. Have you seen, or do you anticipate on having more creative in the next 3 years?
That is something that I think all marketers are going to need to address, and so we do invest heavily. We have a world-class creative agency internally at Target, our Target Creative Studio. We have video capability within there. We also work with some of the best ad agencies in the world, and I think that what we're seeing is we need to bring everybody in to be able to deliver messages and create enough content to meet the need. So it is a number one thing that we're focused on as we're going and building out our marketing campaigns going forward is really trying to pay attention to not just how many weeks you'll be on air, how many people are we trying to reach, but also in what context will they see it, and not just letting an investment level or a production budget dictate how much content you're going to create. So we're actively trying to figure out how to become more nimble to create more content so that we can be more relevant, because the data is something that we activate on, but we still need to deliver a more relevant message once we know the signals and the contexts.
So it sounds like data has a seat at the creative table.
It does, yes.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it is. We have, I feel very fortunate to work at Target. We have a ton of really smart, creative people, and I find that some of my creative partners are the ones that are really gravitating towards data. There's a healthy competition internally to all lift each other and be better, and so when we can give them information on what's working and what's not in real time, and they have a chance to address that, it's really exciting to see how
they're upping their game, getting smarter. Mm-hmm. So you've mentioned data and in-house quite a bit. So it seems as if you're starting to pull your data capabilities closer in-house. Can you elaborate on that? Like, I mean, it clearly is a strategic advantage for you as a marketer. But can you talk about what you're doing to kind of up your data in-house capabilities?
Yeah, so first I would like to say we are working with a large group of partners. So it is not eliminating any of those relationships. I think what it's doing is we're looking at the marketplace, and we know we sit on a mountain of data as well. And we don't see a one-stop shop right now. So I think the conversation a little bit earlier around standards and collaboration and cooperation and trust are really important to us. And so the goal of what we're building is not to alienate or isolate Target from the rest of the marketplace. It's actually to make us more informed consumers when we're talking to networks or content creators and partners. And so we have a big group of in-house developers and data analysts that are tied to different parts of the business that supplement a lot of the insights and the work that comes through from our key agency partners like Team Arrow. So we're bringing it in-house because we're trying to thread together and make some more sense of the chaos that is in the marketplace right now. But we believe that is going to require a lot of deep partnerships and relationships.
Where do you see the big holes? I mean, it's a bunch of duct tape right now, and once you bring it in, you can see, I would assume you can see a little bit better where the holes are.
Yeah. I think the holes are, right now, it's up to the marketer and or the agency to piece together the insights. So you'll get insights from a particular partner or a group of partners, but to be able to see the entire video ecosystem or landscape, that's a gap right now. I would say, so I've heard different numbers, but the one that I quote is that there's 5 hours a day where people are consuming video and watching. Yet how much of that is OTT? And so if you have to pull in a different source to see that, it might be 90 minutes of that. So all of a sudden, and a lot of that is non-ad supported. A lot of the opportunity to reach a guest with a relevant message has shrunk. So understanding the content that is on those non-ad supported platforms, how engaged are people within those? How is that interplaying with what they're watching through linear or through short form video in other places? The interconnectivity or the connectivity of the different viewing experiences feels like a little bit of a gap that we're piecing together, whereas we'd love to have a more holistic picture of how it's all working.
Okay, so if you had to prioritize over the top, even alternative advanced VOD, let's even put VOD in there. Let's go with less than 10% of viewing, maybe? I don't know. Ad supported, okay? Right. And let's compare that to linear television. Which are you prioritizing in terms of your data strategy? Is the TV, what we would call TV and not alternative over the top or VOD or streaming or TV everywhere, is that in a place where you are satisfied?
I'd like to say...
That was a softball, by the way.
Thank you. Say we're never satisfied, but linear does take up a large portion of the consumption, but I think what we're trying to get deeper into is to understand the context, again, that word.
That too, yeah.
Where we're understanding that what is the difference in your attention when you're watching a cable block and a number of different shows where the distracted viewing or the device experience coupled with what's on TV, which one are you more engaged with, where it's live and lean forward? What is the experience that you're leaning into there? So I feel like in the linear space, I think what we're trying to understand is more of the interactivity between the guest and what they're watching. What are they actually paying attention to? And in OTT, frankly speaking, we're just trying to find out as much information as we can. So I couldn't say that we're prioritizing one over the other. We're actually going full bore at all of them. But the interesting thing is I would say that OTT, depending on the experience and some of the binge and marathon watching behaviors, actually we need to pay attention to that because that's where you can show up in a really tone-deaf way if you're not thinking about your content and your experience really well. So your softball, hopefully I addressed that.
You did. It was good because it's both. The answer is both for sure. But you're also really active in Addressable. So I'm curious what you've learned in Addressable TV that you're applying to linear over the top or just your video strategy in general. Is it helping show the way or?
Yeah, I think we're looking at it, to your point, as a signal to inform our overall investment. We love the opportunity there. It's a great testing environment, and we consider it a really important part of our overall learning plan and roadmap for the future. But we don't think it's the entire end game. So we're using it to inform whether it be creative decisions or programming decisions. So we use it as a signal. It's important to drive our business, certainly, but we believe that that's another place that the industry can work together to sort of figure out how do we make that opportunity less of a finite one. And so We use it as a testing and learning ground, but also to drive our business in a meaningful way too. That's a place, though, to your point, where content really matters. And so just showing up and saying, hey, we're going to address these households, but if it's with all of the same content, then we don't really see a ton of value there. So it does create some resource challenges that you need to figure out as well to really go deep into that space and be successful.
I know, I totally agree with you that the addressable pendulum has swung all the way to just audience-based buying and doesn't give much value to context. And it's a big watch out for content owners, is that we've got to figure out a way to get to the data to help advertisers understand the value of context so you can properly price it. Yeah. So a lot of people in the room that are influencers in Addressable, if you had one thing you could ask for, what would it be?
Good question. I would say that I would just harken back to what I had heard previous to this. I think everybody working together, whether it be with networks or MVPDs, is how do you work more closely together to make the opportunity much greater than it currently is. That really feels like one of the #1 challenges that I see.
Collaboration and more.
Yes.
More inventory.
Yeah.
Okay, so programmatic TV and index-based buying, and in the upfront, tell me some information about your partners and what you're doing and what you're learning, and kind of like how do you see this marketplace evolving and what you're learning and how are you going to apply that?
Yeah, so I would say that we have 2 huge, really key partners in that space right now. So it's NBCU, but it's also Team Arrow. So you talked about index-based buying. So I think what we're most excited about with the NBCU partnership is the true relationships that we're building there. So they're hitting on a lot of the things that we talked about earlier: data, measurement, content. They have a great network and portfolio of brands that really resonate well with our guests, but it's still very much a place where it requires very deep relationships. It's not an automated marketplace or anything along those lines. So we're really excited about the work that we're doing there, but also with Team Arrow, because even if we're testing a little bit into the programmatic space, what we want to do is pull those insights back and apply it to our larger investment and overall planning strategies as well. So the ability to identify at a program level what a guest is viewing, and then tie that back to performance, I mean, that's hugely meaningful, and it could change the currency of how we start to operate in the marketplace. But I just want to be clear as well, I don't think at Target we're not looking at that as an opportunity to necessarily take money off the table. It's to better inform our investments so that and also what is resonating best with our guests, so we can be more thoughtful about how we show up in that space.
So, and how do you see programmatic? Would you call that programmatic or index-based buying? Which would you call it?
I think to be honest, I think we're doing a little bit of both.
Yeah.
So the programmatic work that we're doing.
You kind of have them both together with the NBC deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even beyond that as well with the index-based buying. So I would say that programmatic, from what we're finding, it's been really good. We're both learning a ton along the way, but it's in its very early stages, and it still requires a really tight relationship there.
You mean manual when you say tight?
I actually mean there's a lot of picking up the phone and working through it together. Yeah. But we've gone into that eyes wide open to say this is something that we think is going to be really important for the future, so let's figure it out together. And that's been one of the things that we're the most excited about. But whether it's talking about more inventory, or is it creative optimization, or is it index-based buying, I think we're trying to work through all that in addition to the operational learning, so that when the market can get into this more full bore, we feel like we're going to have a step ahead.
We are lucky to have you here. You're definitely, one of the advertisers that really understands the future and is doing something about it, so thank you.
Thanks.